Hey everyone. In this episode of Touchpoints, we're going to be sitting down with our CEO and founder of AI Media Group, Sergio Alvarez. He's going to talk to us about all things AI, Attribution, and his journey to build the place. Stick with us. Thanks. Serge, tell me a little bit about how you started AI, what prompted it, how you got from where we were to where we are today.
It was a 16-year journey now in August, and it was really trying to solve for the big buzzword today, which is attribution. So even back then, before I started the company, I kept on seeing advertisers struggle, as they still do, being able to figure out a true ROAS, true ROI, let alone a singular dashboard. You add in where we are today with social video, mobile content, programmatic, and just keep on going. It's increasingly difficult for somebody to figure out what's working. Most clients are looking at last click. So the formation of the company was really saying, how do we look at every tactic that's digital and really be able to assess how it's working? And then from there, in as real time as possible, be able to figure out how to pull those levers. Because if you do that, then you can figure out what is the right media mix, which is what people are struggling with.
Yeah, totally. One thing that comes to mind when I think of fine-tuning your media mix is not getting too obsessive about the ROAS, but still understanding how you're impacting the bottom line. So when you think about top converting touch points, pass to conversion, all these different channels in a media mix, what's your advice to CMOs who don't know where to start or don't know which channel to look at first?
Well, I'm gonna challenge you on that one. To me, it's all about the ROAS.
Yeah.
Right, because you are working back from a result. So when we're speaking about CMOs or CFOs or anyone, it's what are you looking to accomplish? And it can't be siloed. I still see many companies today that they have their brand initiative separate from their generic or their lead gen. And as long as you have an overarching view as to what the goal is, then you can figure out, okay, how do I break that apart? And then how do I have guiding principles to lead me there? So long-winded way of saying is it all has to work together.
Yep.
And you have to figure out what success is. And you cannot have competing success metrics. There has to be one overarching metric. So if you're doing branding, you're doing lead genning, you're doing something else, they all do have their own metric. But what are you looking for? You're looking for sales.
Yep.
Right? So that has to be the guiding light.
Yeah, well said. So 16 years,
Yep.
2 investments from Blackstone later.
Yep.
Talk to me about your entrepreneurial journey. What is advice you can give to folks trying to start an agency today?
There's never a good time.
Yep.
So you just have to try and do it.
Yeah.
It would be nice to be able to say you have a completely different mousetrap, but that gets developed over time. I will say the easiest ones is when you're meeting a needed market, right? So we're not necessarily creating a need, not that there's anything wrong with that, that's great. But if it's something that's almost commoditized and there's enough people that are out there, it's supply and demand. And if you could deliver a better result, more importantly, be able to clearly show it, right? So every agency, everyone that starts out there, it's great to have amazing people, in the culture, but it comes down to what is that you're solving for. What are you bringing to the table that's going to make it easier, better able to articulate what you're delivering, and more importantly, just have really, really clear results.
Yep, and a clear dashboard where they can see it.
Clear dashboards, just at the end of the day, there's no guessing as to if what you're doing is working or not.
Yeah, well said. So with all that in mind, do you think of AI Media Group as an ad agency or a technology company?
Yes. So there's a lot of technology that's enabling us as to what we're doing with the advertising side.
Yeah.
So the idea behind it is, again, we are leaning on mathematics. One of the things I say all the time is eliminate guessing and act on mathematical, data. So it is about the ROI. Yeah. Because then that's something that is so incredibly clear that then you can defend the other ideas, creatively, strategy, et cetera. But that needs to be guided by, as I said, math. It may be more difficult in some other industries, but when it comes to digital, since everything is trackable, it should be easy to be able to say, am I getting the results that I'm actually looking for? And then from there, from the high level, be able to peel down and get specific as to what tactics are actually performing.
Yeah.
It goes back to the math.
Yeah, you make a great point. And I think Attribution does a great job cutting through some of the noise and those bias networks. Google's going to claim incredible.
Everyone's claiming credit.
Everyone's claiming credit, right?
And everyone's doing the job, and there's a place for the mid funnel, top funnel, certainly the end of the funnel, but it's how do they work together?
Yeah.
There's still this massive misconception, because if you think about Google, they're going to win no matter what happens.
Yeah.
And your organic side is going to win. But if you can't say that the end of that journey on organic actually happened because of all these other mid-funnel tactics, how can you give proper credit? Not just to organic, which you may be over attributing to, but also to those other tactics that are doing the heavy lift, but they're not made to convert. Right? They're in the middle. You don't go on Facebook. It's not intent based, but it is going to guide you. And then all of a sudden you convert organic. So what are you giving the credit to? Misappropriating it.
Yep. And always having the guiding light being revenue, ROAS, ROI.
The cost per lead, whatever it is that's going to say, this is what's landing in my CRM that's going to get us the sale.
And looking at every step of the funnel to truly understand that.
You have to.
Yep. What's that?
Yeah, so when I started the company, we were solving this needed market. And one of the things I was looking at is clients had so much confusion, as I said, right? And you'll hear me say attribution a million times. But the idea behind it is that, and I say jokingly, a lot of the agencies, when they have success, it's because of their efforts.
Yep.
If they don't, it's the content, the creative, it's the vendors, it's everyone else. So what I really wanted to build was an unbiased source that the clients could look at from any source. So we're not picking a vendor based on what we think is going to be best. It's based on the results.
Yep.
And when I worked at these all the different companies, it was very biased towards them, as it should be. But when you think about the end client, they have to spend their dollars or their marketing dollars everywhere. Yep. And to be able to say, okay, we are truly going to be unbiased. And if that means that 90% of the spend that you have, the investment, is going to be on a particular channel because that's what works best, that's what it is. There's no skin in the game for us other than saying this is what's working best for you versus fair sharing it. The biggest thing I continue to see even to this day and age is that somebody could have a budget, and let's just use a number. Let's say they have a $100,000 budget on a monthly basis, and they'll do percentages. X amount is going to go to Google, to Facebook, to programmatic, and they're very static.
And they don't understand the why behind those percentages other than what they think strategically makes sense.
It's what they think. It's a gut. It's a feeling. It's saying, okay, I know that, or I feel that social media is performing for me, but I can't see the end result. In other words, with social media, as we know, it's not intent-based. It's not going to get somebody to convert immediately. But if you didn't have that, would you have gotten that sale or that lead, whether organic or on paid? Well, the idea behind it is that you can say, okay, instead of taking a gut feeling, mathematically, you can say, yes, that is what's leading to my conversion.
Yep. And that's, why what we've built here at AI is so impactful. I've been in the industry for quite some time now, and I've done just that. I plan based on what I think strategically makes the most sense, but I've never had a solution to fully back it up and show me the conversion paths.
And there's a difference between a gut feel, and most people are right, but you can act on a gut feel, not in real time.
Yeah, and it's harder to back up a gut feeling to the CMO of a new business that wants to scale their advertising spend versus true ROI, true touch points.
In particular, when that gut feeling does not prove out immediately.
Yep.
Right. It could be a waterfall effect. It could be that it's just longer time in market and people are still looking at marketing dollars today. It could be a result today. Or I spent X amount of money this month. What are my results? Well, those results of what you spent today are not going to be realized any time for several months.
Yep.
So you have to look at that as well.
Yep. Speaking of the marketing J curve and that path to profitability, what are some success stories that you think we've had at AI Media Group in helping some of our clients combat brand growth while also driving immediate ROI?
It's a combination of them.
Yeah.
Right. So again, when people say brand growth or lead gen, so the telecoms would be a big example.
Yeah.
They have a brand team, which you showed, and a lead gen team, and they act differently. The KPIs are differently.
Yeah.
Right. But when you put them together, all of a sudden you have 2 + 2 = 5.
Yep.
It's not 4 anymore.
Yep.
So I think the biggest success would be to be able to take a budget and then change that media mix to the extent that the client could say, wow, I did not realize I needed to spend that much more, let's say just on search, because they weren't capitalizing on it, which means they really need to fund the other efforts even more. Yep. I've yet to see one client in our 16-year history that is fully tapped out where they hit the point of diminishing returns, because they haven't really reached a level of success on every single tactic.
Yep.
Because again, they're fair sharing those tactics.
And there's a difference between capitalizing on existing demand, even if you've scaled that demand, versus driving new demand.
Mm.
And I think that's a great point.
Whether it's creating demand or meeting demand.
Yeah.
And then being able to sit with it to be able to say, okay, as I said, dollars today does not mean dollars tomorrow that are coming in. Spend today does not mean the revenue that's coming in, which becomes even more important for tracking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you have to realize that if, let's say in the cruise industry, you may be booking something that's 6 months or a year out, but you booked it today, and or I should say you spent the marketing dollars today, and 3 months later after research, you book it for a year from then. So those long consideration windows are huge, and you can only capitalize them and be able to optimize against them if you have proper tracking.
and not only focusing on first touch or last touch, focusing on how thoughtful each touch can be.
I would say that you have to look at weighted attribution.
Yep.
I can't see, and no one can prove to me that that is not the best way of doing it.
Yep.
Because it is accurate.
Yep.
You can see it. If you're looking at last touch, what happens to all the other tactics, behind it?
Right.
If you're looking at first touch, what happens to that? So it has to be the entire journey in the entire picture.
Throughout your career, you've had to face a lot of industry change, fast pace, new trends, new topics being thrown during ad week, or whatever the latest article is. How do you combat all of that noise with always keeping your focus on the bottom line and managing the clients to a way that they know we are proactive and innovative, but we are approaching everything with a healthy sense of skepticism to test, analyze, and then scale?
Proof.
Yeah.
Right. So if you think about it, what happens in the industry is, you're right, there is a lot of noise. So not only is there noise and the shiny new toy, there's also the things that the networks are doing or the big tech that's taking things away.
Yep.
I just did a conference the other day, and one of the misconceptions people have is when it comes to privacy. First of all, there's no such thing. There is.
Yep.
Obviously, you have to be compliant, but we are giving so much information away. Whether you're making a phone call and it says this call may be mounted for quality assurance, they've got all your data. Or certainly when you fill out a form, you're going through the T's and C's of the site. So we're giving away more than what we're saying. And I say that because if you think about big tech, they continue to limit the amount of data that either the advertiser, the agency, or the client is actually getting, not because they're altruistic, but because they want to limit the amount of information that would make the campaign that much more optimized.
Yep.
So you always have to have the pulse of saying, what data am I actually getting that is real, that is actionable, that I can make that decision on?
Yeah. And obviously we're biased and we think that third-party tracking solutions are probably a great way to cut through that network bias.
As I said, if it's digital, it's trackable.
Yep.
And if you have any holes in it, then the whole thing falls apart.
Totally.
So you have to track everything.
To your point about big tech and the changes that are being made with data, someone like Facebook, every day I open my email, I see that they've taken away 4 other interest parameters or 40 other interest parameters. Now I go into the ad accounts and there are no interest parameters. It's very little. So we are starting to look at our creative as a targeting optimization lever, probably more than it's ever been before. So when you think about creative and the importance of ensuring your creative moves at the same speed of your media, how are you communicating that to media clients who maybe haven't put such a focus on creative as performance marketers before?
It's going to sound like a broken record, but it all goes down to tracking that creative down to the actual conversion. And where was it in that flow? Right?
Yep.
So, creative it's going to have its own metrics that you can look at, but ultimately, where was that creative in the funnel that led to that actual conversion?
Yep.
And just using that to actually guide the way. So if you think about, you asked the question before, years ago, one of the challenges was that Google in particular used to actually give you the keyword that was actually used.
Yep.
Right? So then they started taking that away. Why did they do that? It wasn't for privacy. It's because if we have, as marketers, that information, we can be more dialed in.
Yep.
We can be more specific. It means CPCs go down. So they took it away.
Yep.
Now we have there's so many things, and now we have the whole advent of this cookieless world that we're going to. Not because of privacy. It's because, again, lack of tracking means that you have more guessing.
Yep.
More guessing means you're spending more media dollars for that reason. So the more specific you can be about the tracking mechanisms, cross-network, cross-device, the better decisions you can make, the more efficient you'll be, which is, I hate to use the word guarantee, but that does guarantee a better ROI, cost per lead, whatever the end result is.
Yeah, well said. And I think the importance of ensuring audience segmentation with creative strategy is core to that, but always laddering that up to where that sits in the funnel and what ROI did it really drive, or what did it touch on to drive the
And
ROI.
there's just so many different factors that you have to consider.
Yeah.
Right. So I do have a big belief in teams being very prescriptive about what they do. So creative, branding, lead gen, whatever it may be. But again, it has to go back to that. What's the guiding principle?
Yep.
What are you looking for? And where does it fit in that whole journey?
Yeah, well said. So that, that does bring up a couple good points that we're going to cover on episode 2 of Touchpoints, which is CTV, the growth in the programmatic industry, and contextual targeting to combat that cookieless future and a lot of the targeting parameters we've lost. So good plug for the second episode. But I would love to hear from you. If you had one piece of advice to give to marketers today in this industry full of noise, in an industry that is becoming maybe less trackable, we're not necessarily sure. What is that advice?
Stop looking at last click.
Well said.
Look at every single, as much as you can, with the right technologies in place. Look at every single touch point and the composition of that sale. And if you can't bring it down to the individual user, you can't show you math.
Yep.
And if you can, then you can certainly make not just assumptions, but use math to be able to say, how do I actually get there? The other thing is make sure that nothing's working in a silo. So back to my example of just branded lead gen. Sometimes they just don't realize that they should both be impacting the other.
Right.
Right. And I understand the different metrics behind it, but at the end of the day, there's only one metric that matters. Is it making it into your CRM? Where is it actually coming from? Is it leading to the conversion that you're actually looking for?
Yeah.
Then you have to look at the composition of that. So great example would be somebody ends up on the brand, but you're giving credit to organic. But meanwhile, you had all these efforts. They were on social content and all these other sites that are out there, but organic is getting all the lift. And what happens? They start doing less on social, on programmatic, and all these other areas. And that's always the guessing game.
Yeah.
So going back to the best advice is if you're tracking all of it and not having any holes behind it, you'll be better able to optimize that media mix.
Yeah. Well said. Pick apart every piece of your journey, track everything, and never be scared to test new things, but with a healthy sense of skepticism, I think.
Don't leave anything untracked.
Yeah, don't leave anything untracked. What makes you tick outside of work? Because you're so much more than just AI Media Group.
So I spoke to some college students not too long ago, and there were a bunch of speakers on stage saying, do what you love, go after your passion. And then when they got to me, I said, that's BS in a way. If you can do what you love and you can, fuel that passion, absolutely. That's a gift and that's amazing. Yeah. But if you can't, build something that you're not miserable at or do something to then be able to fuel your passion and everything else you do. So, to me, the creation of this company, yes, it was a passion to be able to work with people, see us all succeed, be able to provide an opportunity for clients to really, really, really be clear on what success means. But at the same time, that allowed me to do the things that I love. Right? I can't be a race car driver, especially not at my age, but I can certainly either attempt to do it semi-professional here and there, but that means that I have to work that much harder when it comes to the organization. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's providing something that, and what I really personally like, it's not winning an argument necessarily, but being able to say, prove me wrong, tell me that it's not correct. And what I love about AI and what we do is that it is mathematically there. There's no conversation between us and a client or even in employees or people that we work with to be able to say, I'm not sure, I don't know, I think. It is as clear as day. And that gives you a lot of conviction in not just what you're promoting or selling, but just in the people that you're working with. Because everyone can point to that guiding light, as I said, to be able to say, no, we know 100% beyond the shadow of a doubt that this is accurate. And from that, it allows us to take our opinions away and really work cohesively because we all have that one guiding light.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, you've built a damn good culture for it. There is no group I'd rather argue with.
I like that.
Thank you guys so much for joining us on our first episode of Touchpoints with our CEO and founder, Sergio Alvarez. Serge, love you. Thank you.
Josh, thank you so much. We've taken enough time. Let's go back to...
Let's go make our clients happy.
Make our clients happy.